Welcome back. My name is Matt Reiners, and I'm the co-founder of Eversound. We provide easy-to-use wireless hearing solutions that help combat untreated hearing loss that affects 65% of senior living residents today. We're dedicated to improving the quality of life of residents by giving them the gift of hearing. Today, I'm joined by Amber Bardon, CEO at Parasol Alliance. I had the chance to meet and get to know Amber at this year's Leading Age Annual Conference in Atlanta, and I'm excited to get to know her even more today. Thanks for joining me today, Amber.
Thanks for having me.
So let's hop right into it and just tell us about Parasol Alliance and how you came to found it.
Sure. So I've been working in the senior living industry for, I guess about 16 years now. And I started out my career in the business at a company in Chicago. And I started out there at the service desk. And over a period of 9 years that I worked there, I actually got promoted 6 times. And by the end of my career there, I was the senior IT director. So this organization was on the north side of Chicago, and they served, they were the aging services branch of the Jewish Federation, and they had pretty much every single level of care and type of senior living service that is available. So home health, home care, assisted living, independent, skilled. And through my time in working there, I really learned everything about the business side of senior living, just not just the technology side. So I implemented projects in pretty much every department. I worked third shift training nurses and really came to have this understanding of how important it is for technology and senior living to support each other and to really have a partnership between your IT solution and the business side. After I'd been at this community for 9 years and I was in the senior leadership position, I was ready for a change in my career. And I had this idea to start a technology solutions service company specific to the industry because I, during my time there, had written a strategic plan and had developed a lot of processes. And I thought that there was an opportunity to bring that to a wider audience. I had no idea how to start a company. So I just ended up talking to everybody I knew. It's all about who you know, right? Telling everybody my idea. And over a period of time, I eventually had lunch with a former coworker of mine at that company who at that time was working at Chicago Methodist Senior Services. And she said, I love this idea. I want to introduce you to our CEO, who is Bill Lowe, who some of you may have heard of. He's the CEO of Chicago Methodist Senior Services. So I had this fateful meeting with Bill Lowe, and I told him my idea. And he said, I'm going to help you with this. He said that every senior living provider needs to have technology. It's a necessary service. So why not have some providers come together and form a company to provide IT services, not only to themselves, but as a vertical integration strategy and future revenue stream to other communities. So Bill really had this idea to form this alliance, which is why we have alliance in our name, and helped me go out and find providers that became the initial investors, owners, and clients of Parasol Alliance.
I love it. I love it. And it just makes so much sense too, in terms of some of the things you were talking about. And, kudos for Bill for helping to support those early beliefs. When we started our company, we had no idea what we were doing either. And it was just a matter of jumping in and talking to as many people as possible, failing fast, and just learning from that. And, I know we've talked about kind of like your business model and how that differs, but how would you say it differs from other solutions that are in the market today?
Yeah, let me give you a little bit more background on exactly what we do as a company. So, and it all ties back to this founding story, which is why I wanted to take some time to explain that in the beginning. So when we were initially looking for investors, we had 15 communities that were interested. We ended up only moving forward with 5, but we did have 15. And they were all, we work primarily in not-for-profit space. So they were all smaller organizations, single sites, not-for-profit. And through this process of getting to know these communities and figuring out how to start the company, I asked all of them, what are you lacking in your IT solution? So, every community has some type of IT solution, and it's either in-house IT or it's outsourced to a local business or a local managed service provider, or possibly they're using a company like ours that's specialized in the industry, or some combination. And so I wanted to really understand, what's the pain point across all of those different possible solutions? And the number one answer I got was strategy. every community said that we don't really understand what we're doing when it comes to technology. We can't afford a CIO. We don't understand how to best utilize our resources. And this is our biggest pain point is we have somebody making decisions that really isn't knowledgeable enough to be making these decisions. So that information I gathered and that input is what led to our business model, which is a pretty unique business model. And I always say that I'm glad I didn't know how to run an MSP until I started running an MSP, because I found out later that the way we have our business model is completely different than the way most other IT managed service providers offer their services. So what we do is we start with strategy. And this is a requirement for our clients. So we do require our clients to go through a strategic planning process. And what that involves is it's several days on site of interviews with key staff in the organization to understand their pain points. It's a full assessment of their technology from top to bottom, including low voltage, business systems, business processes, policies and procedures, security, and of course their IT infrastructure. And what we do is we put together this comprehensive roadmap that tells them over a period of 3 years exactly what they need to do to implement technology across the organization. And then what we do is with our business model, we then partner with them. And there's really two sides of our services. So we provide the day-to-day IT operations. I can't get into my computer or my printer isn't working or, the break fix type things. But in addition, we also include projects on the technology roadmap as part of our contract. So we're executing those projects at the same time we're taking care of the day-to-day IT operations. So this way the organization is able to move forward with their technology goals. And what's different about the way we do this is that we do it all under one flat rate. So what I have discovered since then is most IT managed service providers provide you with a rate for, break fix, the operations, the ticketing side. But anything addition like a project, for example, putting in a new firewall, that would be consulting. So what we believe is that really impacts client happiness and client relationships. Because if I'm going back to my clients every month or every quarter and telling them, oh, by the way, next month your firewall's up for renewal and you have to pay me $5,000 to put in a new firewall for you. First of all, it seems a little unethical to me to do that. Second of all, how does the client know the truth of this? Like, how do they know if this should really be done, if it's the right price? It's almost like when, they're forced into a situation without really having the information. And then again, it's self-serving because obviously I'm the one who's going to benefit by telling them they need to do this project. So, we really felt that was not allowing clients to really be successful with their technology, because the other side of that is they're going to put off those types of decisions, right? If every single project they do, there is any type of system refresh or new innovation or changing their business process is going to cost them money, they're just not going to do it, or they're going to do a reduced number of those things. And so what we decided to do was to include a set number of those projects in a flat rate contract so that the client sees, first of all, upfront, what is it we need to commit to from a budget perspective over the next 3 years? But also, I'm telling you now that this is what's coming up, and then we're going to partner with you and actually execute it for you. And this is all included in our rate, so you don't have to go back and pay us something additional later.
Yeah, I love it for multiple reasons. When you first started talking about like the strategy side, I think there's something I've experienced firsthand in working with providers is they don't have that strategy in place, and they're almost asking us. Not asking us, but it's like almost like we can dictate their technology strategy. Like I could probably count on one hand the number of people who have reached out to us and be like, hey, this is our technology strategy. This is where you fit into it, rather than just kind of adopting this innovation mindset and just like kind of like, oh, this looks cool. This looks cool. Let's do that. And then I think to your point about the flat rate, like, yeah, people are always hesitant on things they don't know, right? Like when you talk about the firewall, and if that's unknown to me, there's always kind of like that almost like, are they pulling a fast one on me? Which is just good to hear that you guys aren't attacking it like that. And I'm sure you've seen it firsthand working on the provider side, which is cool. So I love what you guys are doing.
So Matt, one comment I want to make that you said earlier is you said often providers can sort of become overwhelmed by what new technology and what's out there, and they might go out and just start buying new things and implementing it. So this roadmap actually prevents against that, because we want to evaluate anything that's not on the roadmap against the roadmap to make sure that we are being really comprehensive in our approach, and we're not buying multiple solutions that maybe do the same thing. So that can also help with that problem, because I've seen that as well, where vendors may go to a leading age conference and they may meet somebody and just be really excited about that product, but really not have a plan to implement it or understand if they have the right infrastructure to make it work, or really where this is in the priority of technology resources overall.
Yeah, it makes absolute sense, right? And I think it's kind of good to always acknowledge as, hey, is it a part of the plan, or are we just seeing this golden spoon in front of us and need to go stop everything and go do that, which shouldn't be the case. So Amber, I know you were telling me that you've got this client-centric business model. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah. So since we are owned by providers, one of the advantages that we have is that client happiness is really our number one priority. We are a for-profit company. Of course, we are revenue and sales driven, but, that's not our primary focus. We believe that being able to focus on client satisfaction and helping our clients be as successful as possible is what's going to lead to our success. And I'm just really grateful that our company was founded this way, and that we have this ability to really let that be the number one thing that we look at. I remember the first time I went to a managed service provider conference, I was actually in complete shock, because every single session was focused on how do you upsell the customer to more and more things that they may or may not need, and therefore tie them to you ever more tightly so they can never leave you. And I was horrified. I was like, this is what the industry is telling businesses that should be their model. Like your clients should not leave you because they're happy, not because you've tied them into so many services they don't understand that they can't leave you. And I just wanted to point that out, that I think that is a differentiator. And I know that our staff really enjoy that aspect, because they don't feel pressured to sell clients something they don't need or try to implement solutions that aren't really necessary.
Yeah, it's more of a partnership rather than like being a parasite, right? And it's just like, we're in this together. Like, how do we help one another? And it's great to hear that you guys are prioritizing that, and not just, talking about it, but you're actually practicing what you preach here. And that's, always the most important part.
Absolutely.
And now I imagine working with senior living providers, you probably run into some patterns or some common scenarios, but like, are there any common problems that you're seeing that you're building solutions for?
I would say strategy, as we've just talked about, is definitely the number one problem, is that there isn't a strategy, or there isn't. I think what I see a lot is communities are almost like paralyzed by inaction, that they don't know. So they don't spend any money, or they don't make any investments in technology, because they're maybe afraid of making the wrong investment. So they just don't feel like they have the right resources, or they're putting that off for the future. And, one of the joys of working in IT is that, no one really cares that much about it until it doesn't work anymore. And, if you've ever experienced that in your community, it's obviously a major disruption to your business. So we really want to make sure that system life cycles are happening, that communities aren't paralyzed by, this lack of unknown. And so that strategy is definitely a problem that we're solving for. Another aspect I want to talk about is, I've mentioned the word technology or IT, and I want to just explain what we think that means. So our vision is transforming technology culture in senior living. And what we mean by that is, I think IT or technology has traditionally been seen as just this kind of cost item in the budget. And we want to try to not increase our spend or reduce our spend, or just really kind of, it's just kind of sitting there, and it's something we have to do. And what we really want to do is change that mindset, because technology is a lot more than that. It's your resident engagement software and your tools. It's your marketing platform. It's automation and artificial intelligence. It's your business processes and being as efficient as you can. It's your advanced clinical decision-making tools and your EMR. And we really want to have people start thinking of technology as this business solution to further and help you achieve your community goals. So again, the roadmap gives you that framework in which to do that. So that's one problem that we're trying to solve in the industry. I don't even know if it's a problem, but really just more of a mindset shift. Another aspect I would say is resident support. So this is obviously becoming just more and more important and more of a need and an expectation. And definitely, there's so many things involved in resident support. We actually have a podcast, Raising Tech. We did two sessions on resident support. So if you haven't heard it, I encourage you to check it out. But I think that this is something that, again, is kind of just left to the side without people really understanding what they need to do or having the right resources to invest in it. And, being able to have that as part of your roadmap is also really important.
Yeah, I love it. And I think making it a part of that strategy and a part of that roadmap makes absolute sense. And I'll link to those in the comments here for those podcasts so people can go and check those out. Amber, I got my last question here for you. As we're heading into a new year, 2022, I would have sworn we would have flying cars by now. But if you could kind of give providers, or even just like technology, as they're thinking through technology, just like 3 guiding principles as we head into the new year, what would you say?
I would say number one, ensure that you have a strategy. And I don't need to keep talking more about that, but everything that I just said previously. Number 2, I would ensure that you have the right partner to execute your strategy. And that could definitely be internal resources. It could be others. Even if it is, you're not going to be adding or changing your IT structure, there's other resources in your organization that are part of your technology vision, and making sure you have the right resources and partner there. And then lastly, I have to mention security. Security is obviously on everybody's mind. We're starting to see all kinds of cybersecurity renewals come in with all kinds of new requirements for our clients. And security is no longer something you can put off making an investment in. And it's definitely going to be a hot topic for 2022.
I love it. Well, Amber, I think there's a lot of great nuggets in this conversation. So thanks so much for joining me here today.
Thank you for having me.